Today, we're going to be talking about slowness and pausing. So to begin with, I would like to ground us here. So, Munga, if you can just keep going, I'm going to be over here So I'm going to say, may the Lord be with you, and then I would like for you to reply, and also with you. May the Lord be with you. And then I would like for us to say these three things together. And I want us to pat our chests in the beginning one. Then I would like you to look at other people in the next one. And then I would like to just look around together. So are you ready? I am here. You are here. We are here together. Jesus said next one please, Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 to 30, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do you feel like that? Because often I don't. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world. I heard this story of a missionary that went to a Maasai, and a Maasai was saying to him, I'd like for you to come with me and do something. And the missionary said, I don't have any time. Let me show you. And he pulled out his diary and he showed the man. He said, look, it's completely full. And the Maasai man said, get another book. As easy as can be, but that is not the way it works in life usually. I don't know if you have any pets like these. These are hamsters, and they like to run. In a night, they can run 10 kilometers when they're in the wild. So you put them on these wheels, and they like to run. And sometimes really strange things happen. Sometimes you feel like you're the one running, and sometimes you might feel like you're the one hanging. And then, because there's something about life, right? It just seems like it's out of control. There's so many things. I don't know what this guy's doing. Like, he's just literally going round and round, and watch, he's gonna spin in a circle. Like, does anyone else ever feel like that? We're so caught up in the busyness of life with things that we're tending to that we find it impossible to slow down. So, there was a very famous violinist. Munga, if you can hit that. His name was Joshua Bell. And so the Washington Post, Joey's heard this before, maybe some of you have too, basically hired him to go to a subway in Washington, D.C. and to play. So he gets set up over here on the left-hand side, and he pulls out his violin and he begins to play. There were about 6 people over 45 minutes that paused to listen to him play. A couple of nights before, people paid $100 a ticket to listen to him. He played 6 of the most complicated violin pieces in the world on a violin that cost $3.5 million. But people were just too busy to stop and listen. Is that you? Because it's certainly me. Munge, next one. You feel like this? Because there's life, right? And I'm going to illustrate it by pulling out what's in this bag. So there's life. And in life, what are some of the things that we have to attend to? Shout it out. Family, all right? And sometimes things go really, really good in family, and sometimes I told my wife this morning I need to leave the house at 9:20 to get here on time, but she thought that I said 9:30. So my presentation wasn't loaded, and guess what? An extra same thing gets put on it. What else do we attend to in life? School. Okay, so school, and sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's not. What else? Work. All right. We're going to put a yellow one up here for work. What else? Relationships. What kind of relationships? Really nice relationships. Maybe some kind of challenging relationships. What else? Ron? Or are you just clearing your throat? Health, absolutely. Health, and sometimes you feel good and strong, and other times you have a condition like me called GERD. Anyone know what GERD is? Gastrointestinal, basically it's acid reflux. So if I play football too hard, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. It's actually very sad because I love football, right? So I don't like that, right? What else do we have to attend to? Okay. I'm not going to put that as too big of a... All right. Church, okay? What else? Community. Uh-oh. Whoa. What else? Creative pursuits. Maybe life-giving. What else? Taxes. Oh my goodness. Because what happens is there's these things, aging parents, sickness that comes in, education, money, children, and some of them are amazing, and some of them are challenging, and some of them are just both. But if we're so busy just going and trying to keep things along, you know what begins to happen? Our life begins to look a lot like this. Because we just keep putting things on, and our life gets overwhelming, and we don't... Is that tiring? Because it is for me. Maybe my bird will start acting up. But that's not the way that life was intended to be. And that's not the way that Jesus modeled life. So we're going to take a peek after that chaotic illustration. And it comes from this little book right here called A Different Kind of Fast. And in the chapter that I'm going to go through a little bit today, we're going to talk about pausing. Acknowledgement that in the spaces in between the busyness of life, there's a sacred dimension. There's a holy pause that's full of possibility. What if in between the busyness of our day, the demands of emails and texts and WhatsApp and working, we were to intentionally slow time down between phone calls, pause, take 5 deep, slow breaths. When we pause between the activities or moments in our day, we open ourselves to the possibility of discovering a new knowledge of presence. When we rush From one thing to another, we skim over the surface of life, losing that sacred attentiveness that brings forth revelations in the most ordinary of moments. In other words, we miss it. Why? Our lives are full. There's a lot of demands that are pressing in on us. Society values productiveness. So in this book, This Here Flesh, this lady, Cole Arthur Riley, she's very young for such wisdom, said this: our societies and communities have a way of grinding up and serving out dignity in portions based on our own human ideals and idols. In the history of the white Western world, you can trace a perversion of dignity in the name of usefulness. You are no longer in the image of God. You are currency. We cannot help but to entwine our concept of dignity with how much a person can do. The sick, the elderly, the disabled, the neurodivergent. My sweet cousin on the autism spectrum, we tend to assign a lesser social value to those whose doing cannot be enslaved in a given output. We should look at them as sacred guides out of the bondage of productivity. Ouch. How do we get out of that spinning rat race of life? For that, I'm so busy. There's so many things that are pressing on us. And one of the ways that the author talks about is an awareness of thresholds. What is a threshold? A threshold is like a doorway. If I could go to the next one. It's like a doorway. Go again. It's this going in from one place to another place. And there's all different kinds of doorways. Because in here we're having one sort of experience. But if I walk over and I walk out towards the light, towards the sun, I walk out, I lift my face up to the sun, and I'm having a completely different kind of experience. So what if, when we're moving through thresholds, whether it's doorways, or whether it's metaphorical, whether it's experiences, that we stop and we take a pause. And it's intentional. And who better to teach us about this than Jesus? Who viewed thresholds, who viewed waiting, who viewed resting as a place to pause so that we can intentionally move into the next space in our lives. I'm taking a pause. Can we just take a big breath in? Refocus on being here. Because we must be the most distracted people in history. And if we don't push against it, if we don't push against, and I am as guilty as the next person, we lose the plot. Jesus showed us the way. Luke 5:16, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Time and time again, there were a lot of demands on his time. But time and time again, He moved us out. He moved himself out of what was going on. He withdrew to a different space, and he paused, and he rested. You see, that can be a place of integration, of healing, of acceptance. Because so often in our lives, we're trying to control the outcome of what happens. And after 56 years on this planet, I'm really coming to realize that I can't. And to illustrate that, I'm going to read a little story called The Gift. And I'll need some of your help, and you'll understand in a second. So, it's called A Fable for Our Times by Carol Pearson. There was a man, one more, who had a son that he loved more than anything in the world. One day, he said to his son, I would give you a gift of the most precious thing I own. And he reached into his pocket and he handed to his son something that shone like a diamond. What is this? Asked the son as he fingered the shining thing. Something for dark times, said the father. Something to help you see. Keep it in the pocket over your heart and never lose it. Puzzled, the son put the shining thing in his pocket and then said, but Father, what I would really like to have is that horse over there. The gleaming one that runs as fast as the wind. Could I have that horse, Father? The father thought for a moment and said, you may have that horse, son. Oh, thank you, Father, said the young man. This is the most excellent horse. I am so fortunate. Smiling, the father placed the reins in the son's hand and said, we will see. The young man spent many happy days riding with his companions through the fields and forests and over the mountains and into the valleys. But one day, he found that his horse had leapt over the fence and run away. Oh no, cried the young man. My excellent horse is gone. I am so unfortunate. The father put his hand on his son's shoulder and said, what did he say? We will see. A few days later, the young man was awakened by the sound of thundering hooves. He ran out to see his horse leading a herd of 12 wild horses towards the pasture. Look, Father, he cried as he opened the gate and drove them in. Now I have many horses. How fortunate I am. The father joined him, and seeing the prancing, neighing horses, said to his son, we will see. The following morning, as the son was attempting to ride one of the new horses, the horse bucked wildly, throwing the young man onto the ground and breaking his leg. Ah, he cried through his pain as the bone was set and the leg tightly bound. I wish the wild horses were still in the mountain. I am so unfortunate. The father made some good cabbage soup and brought it to his son and gently said, thank you. That afternoon, the king's soldiers came through the village, conscripting all the young men into the army to march to the front and fight the enemy. The only young man they did not take was the one with the broken leg. Ah, said the young man, smiling in relief, for he never wanted to march to the front and fight the enemy. I'm so fortunate. The father watched the last of the soldiers disappear over the horizon and said to his son, and you guys are so sharp. In the following days and weeks and months, the young man became very lonely. All of his comrades were gone to war. He watched the horizon for their return, but to no avail. There was no one to be my friend, he lamented to his father. Oh, I'm so unfortunate. The father looked over at the village square and said, we will see. Soon every young woman for miles, next one, was making eyes at the young man. For indeed, he was the only available man in the entire village. Why, look, father, said the young man, I can have my pick of all the girls. I can choose the most beautiful to be my wife. And he did. He fell in love with the girl with the shiniest hair and the clearest skin and the brightest eyes and the most stunning smile. Swooning, he looked at his bride-to-be, said to his father, is she not the most beautiful girl in the land? Indeed, I am the most fortunate of men. The father held out his arms to his lovely new daughter-in-law and said to his son. Before the month was out, the young man discovered that his new wife was not only beautiful, but she was also spoiled and self-centered, and chose not to dirty her soft hands with dusting the house or feeding the pigs. Eventually, the young man confided his unhappiness to his father, saying, what a poor choice I have made in a wife. Oh, I'm so unfortunate. And the father smiled and put an arm around his son and said, the young man worked very hard to see past his wife's beauty, and also past her spoiledness and her self-centeredness and her laziness. He found things inside her that he did not know were there, things that she did not know were there, things that no one had looked for before. And as he did, he often found things within himself that he did not know were there. The young man and his wife created together a life of happiness and kindness and patience and forgiveness. And they negotiated well how often the house had to be dusted and who would feed the pigs. They were blessed with children, and their home was filled with peace and harmony and laughter and love. And often the young man's father came to visit, and his son said to him, Father, look at my wonderful family. I am the most fortunate of all men. The father kissed the forehead of the sweet grandchild sitting on his lap and said, we will see. I'm going to close the book right there. What was happening? He was living life. And each time he thought he could control the circumstances, but he couldn't. And what he thought in his mind would be best often wasn't. And what he didn't think was going to be good often was. And he goes through life. And the moral of the story is, we have to live the life that we've got and accept the way that things are. And if we as Christians come into our lives with this open-hearted stance, and we work to integrate the different sides, and of course we don't like it when bad things happen, and we love it when good things happen. I'm the same as you. But if we can have a longer perspective, if we can work to take the good and the bad and to accept them as they are and submit our lives to God, our lives will be better. And that's the way of Jesus. It's a way of taking a pause from what's happening in life, from retreating, from looking, from integrating it into who we are, allowing God to come into our heart and our lives and our spirit. There's a quote from Henry Nouwen, who is a Catholic mystic, and it says this, next one. In a world that victimizes us by its compulsions, we are called to solitude, where we, next one, can struggle against our anger and greed and let our new self be born in the loving encounter with Jesus Christ. Next picture. Oops, it's not that one. Because there's something about coming to Jesus and opening ourselves up and taking a step back from the busyness of life, because often we grab onto something like these little kids, Munge, and and they're riding sheep. That's what we feel like life is. We hold on, and some of us are able to hold on a little bit longer. Look at that guy. What? Uh-huh. But I'd like to say that life is so much more than just holding on for dear life. Somehow it's taking a pause in our lives. Next one, please. This is my dad. Some of you guys know him. He's fondly known as Babu, and he died about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Forced pause in the life of Brent. I was having lunch with Risper. I don't see Risper here. Maybe she is. And I got a call. Well, actually, it started in the morning. I got a call that he had gone into the hospital. It was about 7 in the morning, our time. Rosemary, Sienna, and I were able to speak with him. So I was having lunch with Risper, and I looked down, and it was my brother, and it was, in the afternoon, and he said, my dad is red-coated. They don't think they can revive him, and 10 minutes later, I found out he died. Within 5 hours, I was on a plane back to the U.S. And all of a sudden, thinking that I could control the situation about when I could go back to be with my dad, spend a little extra time. I mean, I knew he was unwell, but I just didn't know that he was that unwell, right? I'm so grateful that all 3 of us in our family had a chance to say goodbye. So now what do I do with it? How do I integrate this? Because, there was something, go to the next one. There's a picture on the right. My mom's, that's my dad right there. He's never golfed in his life, I don't think. And I just got this a couple days ago. So he was down in Alabama. I mean,
there's this thing behind you.
There's something about my dad, right? His larger-than-life presence, his love of people. Everywhere that he went, my dad cared and loved for people. And if he ever shook your hand, you knew it. And he'd give you a big bear hug, and he'd practically crush you. So what am I to do in my life now that he's gone? Does it crush me? Of course I grieve. I literally think about my dad every single day. Or somehow do I just say, now that my dad has died, what now? How do I use this as a pause in my life? It's happened. We will see. The outpouring of love from around the world was life-changing. How do we take the different parts of our life and we integrate them in? So, I want to do a couple of different things. So if you'd close your eyes. The first one is a breathing prayer. And we're just going to breathe in slowly and hold and then out. And so what I'd like to do as we breathe in, I would like for us to say in our minds, I let go. So let's just try it. We breathe in, and inside we're saying, I let go. And when we exhale, we say, and rest. So let's do it all together. 1, 2, 3. Let's inhale. I let go. And exhale. And rest. One more time. We breathe in. I let go. And out. And rest. So what are the things that we let go of, or that we need to let go of? In the book of, go to the next one, in the book of Luke, go back one. Chapter 21, verses 37 Have you guys ever seen a picture of Jesus like this? I couldn't resist. Yeah, this is what it said. Each day, Jesus was teaching at the temple. Next one. And each evening, he went out to spend the night on the hill called the Mount of Olives. And the people came early in the morning to hear him at the temple. So each day, the rhythm of Jesus was to get up. He'd get up early. He would talk to the Hulk and Captain America and sharing life, sharing wisdom. But then every evening, he would go back to the place of rest so that he could recharge, so that he could pause, so that he could breathe. And so once again, I want to take you on a 2-minute journey with Jesus. It's called imaginative prayer. So if you guys would close your eyes, please. And I want you to see yourself walking with Jesus in your mind into the temple. What does it look like in your mind as he's teaching? What is the look on the faces of the people who are listening to him teach? What are some of the words that in your mind you can hear Jesus saying while he's teaching? And as he's wrapping up, ask Jesus if you can come with him to the Mount of Olives. Jesus looks at you and smiles and says, come along. And so you're walking out of the temple through the streets of Jerusalem and you're engaging him in conversation. You go outside of the city walls. You can feel the rocks under your feet. The sand gets a little bit in your sandals. But it doesn't matter because you're conversing with Jesus. You ask him, how does he hold these rhythms in his life? How do you sustain all of this teaching and healing? What does he say? When you reach the Mount of Olives, both of you sit down and you rest. Look at his face. How does Jesus' countenance shift once he's away from the crowds? Once he's in his place of rest? And eventually, you close your eyes and you rest. The next morning you hear the birds chirping and you open your eyes. How do you feel upon awakening? You can open your eyes. My brother always says, in the end, it will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And that's what I believe. I'd love my dad to come and visit me, to give me a glimpse of what Babu is seeing. Because I don't believe death is the end. And I want to live my life with this openness to what God does in and through me. And I want to pace myself because the very last thing I want to do is to be, just go 2 more. Oh, 1 more. So back to this. Click. Is one of those hamsters that's either on the wheel or the one that's being spun around and around. Because if we don't take time, I'd rather be that one who's dining right there. Yeah? See, because, that guy's running. He's really not even going anywhere. He gets caught in this rat wheel, right? This hamster wheel. Or the guy that's just barely hanging. Sometimes I'm that guy just hanging on and flipped around. But I think somehow if we are able to follow the example of Jesus, and back to the picture of Jesus, take that time of rest on the Mount of Olives. Don't you love that picture of Jesus? Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my burden is easy and my yoke is light. Let's pray. Jesus, life is so much. All of the beauty and the pain and the experiences and the things that keep life going and the pressures and the joys. Somehow, Lord, I just want to reach up my hand and I want you to guide me into the places of rest and pause. That throughout the day, that as I go from thing to thing, that as I go through experiences and as I go through different doorways, thresholds, that gentle presence of your Spirit would be grounding me in the moment and opening my heart to pause. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for the example that you set. I commit my life and all of these beautiful people to you. In Jesus' name.